Okay. Well, hello, everyone. And this is our session with getting to know a Native elder. I'm Jacque Gray and Director of the National Indigenous Elder Justice Initiative, or NIJI. And today we're talking with Cynthia LaCounte, the Director of American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian programs at the Administration for Community Living. And she is the elder that we're going to talk with today. Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning. I'm not an elder, Jackie. I'm just me.
Yes, you are an elder. So tell us a little bit, Cynthia, about, where you come from and who you are.
Cynthia Eileen LaCounte was born August 1st, 1951. I don't tell very many people that. At Mercy Hospital in Williston, North Dakota. We lived in Montana. And I am the third child from Bud LaCounte, Willard LaCounte, and Venice Kresh. My Indian grandma was Tressa Portra LaCounte, and I'm so proud of her and very proud of my father. We are Turtle Mountain Chippewa, and we are Métis, which means mixed blood. We are some of those people whose fur trappers came down the St. Lawrence River from Canada and fell in love with beautiful Indian maidens. And many of us at Turtle Mountain are Métis, and a lot of us have that French influence in our tribes. I was raised on a farm in northeastern Montana. Our farm began as a result of the last treaty with Turtle Mountain. We call it the 10-cent treaty, when the government forced the tribe to sell off land at 10 cents an acre. And Turtle Mountain used to occupy just about the entire state of North Dakota and up into Canada. Our people occupied. And we were shrunk down to 12 square miles. And there's a lot of Turtle Mountain tribal members. So in that treaty, they also moved families off the reservation, out of the reservation boundaries into ceded land, and gave families land allotments. It was a section of land, 180 acres. And I always say they gave us a row and a shovel and told us to go be farmers. So my grandparents on Dad's side were all included in those land allotments, which for us, those land allotments were given for much of eastern Montana, land in much of eastern Montana and northwestern North Dakota, sort of in between, the reservation in North Dakota and Fort Peck Sioux tribe in Montana. So they moved us into enemy territory, which is the Sioux, and we learned to run really, really fast. But yeah, I'm a farmer's daughter and love the land, love the farm. I'm inheriting our family farm, which will never, ever be sold. And I'm a farmer. That's who I am. And I'm Bud LaCounte's daughter. I want to throw in a little plug here that if you really want to know who I am, you should Google my dad, who is Willard, Willard LaCounte. He was a World War II veteran and day 2 of the invasion, and they did some really good interviews with him that are posted on YouTube and on Google. So find my daddy.
What's your earliest memory?
I don't know if I have a memory, but lots of memories, and they all include the farm, running after my dad, lots of animals, the pasture, horses, cows, just being a little farm kid running around the country with my hair in braids and my shorts on, no shoes, no shirt. That was me.
Okay. as you've gotten older, as you've been involved working with the elderly, uh, tell me a little bit about the most rewarding things that you experienced or through your life.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to keep it to career. I have been so blessed in my career that I've been able to work with the elders, with tribal elders. I mean, here's this dumb little farm girl from Bainville, Montana that when I started working with tribal elders, I actually applied to be the administrative assistant for the Indian desk in Helena, Montana. And I wasn't selected. And I was just horrified. What? They don't want me? Well, they didn't select me, but they recommended that I move into directing what was called the Tribal Elders Program for the tribes or reservations in Montana. So I dropped in, and I didn't have a clue anything about elder services. I just knew I had a really cool grandma that I spent a lot of time with. And so the elders taught me. I was literally in my mid-20s and found this career, and the elders trained me, and they must have seen something in me, or they could see that I wasn't ever going to leave. But my work memories are incredible. Thoughts and remembering stories that elders all over the country have told me, and lessons they've taught me, and the culture that they've shared with me. When you're a farmer's daughter from Bainville, Montana, and you grow up off the reservation, you don't have that culture to hang on to. You know, you're different, you're treated differently. You know, there's something, but you don't quite know what that something was. And my work with the tribes and the elders have given me that something. One of the biggest lessons I remember was from a man from the LaCounte Reservation in Wisconsin, LaCounte Ojibwe band or Lake Superior band of Ojibwe Indians. Gosh Gabas was the tribal chair there. And because I worked for a Great Lakes Intertribal Council, a corporation of several tribes, when I would go to visit a reservation, you always stop in and you let the chair know you're going to be there, and you let the chair know when you leave and what you've done. And he said, you know, Cynthia, you need to get a notebook. He said, you should have a notebook because you have this opportunity to talk to these elders from each of these tribes in the state. When you leave us, you need to take your notebook and write down your thoughts, what you've learned, what they've shared with you, what your thoughts are. Put it all down. And I thought, yeah, that's a really cool idea. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Walmart and I'm going to get that notebook. And I never did get that notebook. And I have regretted that so much because I have let go of 44 years of those memories with the seniors that are just here now. And I wish so much I'd written them down.
What's the most rewarding thing about getting older?
Oh, good heavens. It's not when you look in the mirror. That much I know for sure. Rewarding thing about I think that I like the peace I'm finding. I like the calmness that I'm feeling. And for those of you who know me, you're probably thinking, oh, there's no way Cynthia's becoming calm, but I really am. And I feel myself finding the ability to weed things out, to separate what matters from what really doesn't matter, to internalize some things and to let some things completely go. But I think it sort of is involved around really knowing yourself and knowing what those limits are and what's comfortable and what feels good. I think I've learned to listen to my gut much better than I ever did before. And I was talking with a staff member this morning, and we were talking about emotional intelligence. There's an emotional intelligence quickbook that I'm going to find for my staff, because I know I lead with emotions more than I lead with my head. And I need to learn how to maneuver that better. And I think probably the best thing about getting older are, of course, those little people that call me grandma.
Okay. So as you're thinking about it, what's the best thing? You just mentioned the little people calling you grandma, but what is the best thing about getting older?
I think, gee, I have a lot of memories and a lot of thoughts. And I sit down sometime and I think about my friends and people like yourself, Jacque Gray, and people like John Eagleshield, and people like Wilson Weewa. I'm so proud that they see something in me to be my friend. And so sitting down and reflecting, you can always tear yourself apart and you can always say, oh, geez, I should have done that differently. I did that wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I beat myself up every night. But at the same time, I have to be realistic and tell myself, I've got some really amazing people that are my friends. I must be a little bit okay because they're still around. I read something years ago. I remember driving around Wisconsin with my friends Julie and Rosie. And I've always got a book in my face. So I'm sitting in the back seat and I'm reading. And I read a line that said something about you form a lot of friendships in your life and you meet a lot of people, but there's very few people that you want to hang on a gold chain around your neck. And I think about that so many times, that all the people that have come through our lives, Jacque, and who we've hung on to and who has hung on to us. I think that's really cool. I've got some great memories with friends.
Has what you thought as a little girl, Cynthia, matched up with your life now and your expectations? And how is it different?
Well, I'm not independently wealthy. I always thought I'd do that. I really planned, when I was young, I wanted to be a model, because everybody from Bainville, Montana goes off to Hollywood and or New York City and becomes models. And I thought at 6 feet tall, that would be a really good career for me. But my mother didn't think so. So I went to the University of Montana and I got a degree in anthropology. And my intention was always, I read about two groups of people that fascinated me. The Dugamdanis in New Guinea, who are wonderfully still wild and savage, and the Yanomamo on the Brazilian-Peruvian border. And those people just fascinated me. And I wanted to be that person that could drop into these completely different cultures and braid up my hair, and everybody's going to take me in and I'm going to do great things and they're all going to love me. That never quite happened, but I think I came really naturally into the career I work with because of relationships that I had with my grandma and just how we grew up. I don't think I ever really planned, when I'm this age, I'm going to do this. And when I'm this age, I'm going to do that. I always said I wanted 6 kids. I don't know why I wanted 6 kids. I have 2, and that's way more than enough. I don't think I ever really planned on where I was going to live and what I was going to do. I was just busy being me. And one thing, another lesson I need to share about my Indian grandma, who I loved with all my heart. But she was in Bainville, so she was in a primarily non-Indian community. Remember, she was a result of that last treaty and those land allotments. And when I went away to college, my brother and my sister have dark hair and brown eyes. And my grandma looks like my grandma, like my Indian grandma. And then there's me. I was the towhead and the blue eyes. And here I am, bebopping around, not a care in the world. And when I left there, again, not with a whole lot of cultural background, she told me I could be anybody I wanted to be. I could receive my education and I could work with tribes and be me, or I could take the other side of me and use those looks and not have to cross those boundaries or those walls, those obstacles, whatever it is that our parents and grandparents had to go through. And that gave me a whole lot to think about for a lot of years, but I think she was just really telling me to be true to who I was.
Recognizing that walking in two worlds,
Mhm.
that you could walk in either one.
Yep. Yep.
So what stayed the same about you throughout your life?
My long stringy hair that my mother always told me I needed to cut and get a permanent. I remember my mom telling me, Cynthia, you can't walk around with your hair long and down and in braids your whole life. Well, I never knew why, so I did. I think I definitely still have my connection to family and the land. That farm is absolutely in my soul. It's my heartbeat. That place is so much a part of me. Family is really important. Who I am is very important. Learning about kind of solving those mysteries in our life. Who am I and why aren't I the popular one? Why don't Denise and Marcia and Kathy want to hang out with me? What's so different about, those kinds of things that you struggle with as you're growing up. And I think I've remained very true to who I really am. And even in leaving Montana and moving to Washington, D.C., I work for a wonderful man. I work for the best boss in the federal government. But I do have days when I give him a heart attack because I am me. And I asked him once, Edwin, how long do I get to still be a Montana cowgirl? When do I have to turn into a Virginia belle? And he said, Cynthia, I didn't hire you to be a Virginia belle. I hired you because you're a Montana cowgirl. I like that answer. But I do give him heart attacks.
Yeah. Well, and we can't imagine you ever doing anything like that.
Hey, I tell them all the time, I didn't come to work for you. I didn't come to work for the federal government. I came to work for tribes, and I just happened to be placed in your department. But I'm here to work for tribes.
Okay. So that's what stayed the same as far as really being you. What's changed the most?
I think, you go through life, and life comes at you, and it's good forms and it's good things and it's bad things. And we make it through because you make it through. I had a perfect childhood. I mean, I absolutely had a perfect childhood. You can't raise a kid better than I was raised in the place I was raised with the family I was raised. But I think part of that perfection led me to make some choices that weren't the best choices I could have made. And I kind of left my brain on the farm when I went to college. But I ended up in an abusive relationship, in a very abusive marriage. And that experience definitely took the innocence away, took away the little blonde farm girl running around the hills thinking that there's not a single thing in this world that can ever hurt me. And there was. And learning to live through that, learning from that experience. And so not to, well, I was going to say so as not to make it again, but I did make it again. But that changed me. That made me it made me angry. It made me, there was a rage inside me. There was a fear. There was confusion. All the feelings that one would feel in an abusive relationship. And I'd never been treated like that before. So it was, and nor had I seen any man treat a woman like that before. That wasn't in our home. Alcoholism wasn't in our home. These were all foreign to me. And I thought if you cared for somebody enough, you could change them. You could control those demons. And so I had to work really hard from that experience, because I thought, oh, I know about domestic violence now. I'm going to work in domestic violence programs. And oh boy, am I going to make a difference. I couldn't. I had to leave that behind because of the rage I was feeling inside. So I think the change was to learn to live with that rage, to learn from that rage, but to learn to put it away and not to let it affect me, because I was a really, really angry person for a really long time. And I think that's part of why I know that's part of the reason that I've become such an advocate for elders and in violent situations. And then, well, I'll talk about that more in the interview, but I think that was my biggest foreign struggle, Jackie, was learning the world and not having my daddy there to protect me.
Mm. Having to deal with that as a grown-up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And trying to understand that mentality, because it was so foreign to anything I'd ever seen, or I thought I'd ever seen.
What do you think is the most important lesson you've learned in your life?
To rely on myself, to know myself and to trust myself and to rely on myself. You know, you can be in a million relationships with friends and a spouse and wherever, but you are what you really have to depend on. You, yourself, your inside, your gut, your brain, your heart. And to feel confident enough about myself that I could trust myself. That's a hard lesson.
I had someone once tell me that you need to develop a relationship with yourself, because that's the only one that you're guaranteed for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And to realize that, you know, I might have had a little bit to do with some of these bad things that have happened to me. Maybe that was some of my responsibility. And yeah, just learning to trust yourself and know yourself.
Recognizing in those situations that it may have been a little bit, but that you also hooked on the whole line to go with that hook, that you were fed along with it.
Yep.
To take responsibility for a whole lot more than that was your part.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, that's one thing I want to really caution our young moms and families about is, you know, often in our homes we're taught it's more than respect. It's to honor our spouse and to honor that relationship, and to be that meek woman, to be that person who's going to be a family, keep the family together, and we're just going to put up with whatever we have to put up with to be able to do that. We really need our young women to be strong and to start learning to rely on themselves, and not in a relationship that we might not find that baby daddy that's going to really raise those kids. We might have to do that on ourselves. But yeah, we need to find ourselves. And I really like what you said in forming a relationship with yourself to learn who you are. That's good advice, Jackie.
Well, taking advice or wisdom, what wisdom would you pass along to others?
Be gentle on yourself. to be at peace, to find what that nugget, that little piece of strength, that rock, whatever that is that can build us up, to find what that is and to truly be at peace with yourself. Don't let this outside world and all these influences in. Keep a part of yourself closed and just for yourself to retreat to.
Good wisdom in that. So we've talked a lot about different aspects of you. What have we missed?
Let's see. Being a single parent is an incredible journey. And if any of you out there are young moms or young dads and raising your kids by yourself, be really good to yourself. I remember crying and thinking, I don't know if what I'm doing is right. I don't know if this is what you're supposed to do. And I didn't have anybody to bounce it off with. But it took me a long time to realize that I didn't want that person to bounce it off to. I didn't want that influence on my kids. That was good. It was good I was raising them without that negative influence. So to be real about your situation and who you are. And there's good in everything. There's lessons in everything. We might not know that what we're going through is to show us a lesson, but I think the Creator certainly has us in his hands and is guiding our life. And I think with that, Jackie, probably the biggest lesson I've learned has come in the last 10 years of living in Washington, D.C. And I'm not going to get all sappy, but I've gone to a wonderful church out there and had a wonderful relationship with a bishop. And I think of the reminder so much, let go, just let go and let the Creator take it over. When you give it away because you can't handle it. Let the Creator handle it and don't take it back. I tell myself and I tell my kids that all the time and trying to make that immediate, make that happen without having to think about making it happen.
Thanks. You can't hang on and let go at the same time.
Yeah. And I'm the one that would say, here, I want you to take it, but here's what I want you to do.
Okay, so do it my way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so good lessons.
All right. So this has been a wonderful conversation, Cynthia.
I love talking to you.
Any last minute comment before we wind things up for today?
Not that I can think about. I don't think so, Jackie. I don't think so.
Well, thank you so much. I've wanted to have this conversation for a long time, and I'm glad we finally got it and have made it happen. So thank you, Cynthia, for joining me and just letting us all know a little bit more about our native elder, Cynthia LaCounte.
You know, it's so hard for me to think of myself in that term. For 44 years, I've worked for tribal elders and to make lives better. And none of them ever told me that I was one day going to be 70 years old and I was going to be one of those elders.
I think a lot more people think of you in those terms than you allow yourself to think about.
Wow. Thank you, Jackie.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you, Cynthia. It's so great.
I love you.
I love you.